May 2nd, 2023. You guessed it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Talk to you a little bit today about people making things harder than they are. Basically overcomplicating things, right? We had a little incident today. We went to town. Girlfriend had to get her medicine at the drugstore and we stopped there. We got in the drive-through line and it was backed up. And I was like, well, we'll just, go inside and sit there for a minute. We go inside and while I'm sitting there, I hear someone in the drive-through talking about their car won't crank, that it was running and it just cut off. So, and I was kind of listening to what was going on. Well, it took probably 30 minutes inside the drugstore to get her medicine filled. And we're backing up. I see the car still sitting there. I thought maybe, she'd already got it cranked because I hadn't heard nothing else. It was a pretty newer car, like a 2016-17 Honda Pilot, I believe is what it was. It was push button start. And there was a truck parked in front of it sideways, like this. It was boosting the battery on it. I thought, well, she's probably got a dead battery. Let me go see if I can help out, right? So I go over there, and the lady's, kind of embarrassed because she's had the line backed up for nearly an hour. She told me she'd already been all the way to Huntsville and drove back. It didn't give her no problem. She just bought the car 2 or 3 days ago, and she was actually late for work. She worked at the hospital on the surgery where they do surgery, and she said, I really got to get to work, but I'm blocking traffic here. Well, the lady that was helping her charge the car, she was on the phone with her husband. And according from what I was getting from her, her husband's an engineer, some type of engineer, and they're talking back and forth about what it could be. Well, first thing I do, I go out and I look under the hood. I pop the lid off the fuse box under the hood. I just kind of push down, make sure all the relays and everything are, good and tight. I didn't pull them out and check them, see if they was blown or anything, but I would just push down on them, make sure they were in there good, because when she would try to crank it, it would just sound like a dead battery. Well, they kept going back and forth on the phone. The lady that owned the vehicle, she wasn't in the vehicle, the lady that was helping her work on it, and I leaned in. They was trying to find somewhere to put the key because it's a keyless start vehicle. I kind of looked in the glove box, didn't see nothing, looked in the console, didn't see nothing. And I got to looking, it was push button transmission. And what they was trying to do was get it in neutral where they could at least get it out of the drive-through lane there at the drugstore, right? It's a small drugstore, but it's at a very busy intersection. There's a lot of vehicles that come in and out of the parking lot there. So I kept watching what they were doing, and the lady that was on the phone with her husband, which was an engineer, was telling her, check this, check that, look for this, look for that. And she was saying, well, we need to get it neutral so we can push it out of the drive-through lane. And the man was like, well, you'll have to go under the hood to do that, I'm sitting there and I keep watching her hit the start button and it's not cranking, So I told her, I said, hey, put your foot on the brake. And when she did that, I reached over and pushed the start button. The vehicle cranked up immediately. And I heard it crank, but I couldn't hear it running because it was real quiet. I don't know if it's some kind of hybrid or not, but I couldn't hear the engine running, but I heard it crank, if that makes any sense. So the lady was standing in the back that owned the vehicle. She's like, it's cranked, okay. So I go around front to undo the booster cables and everything. The vehicle, I guess, cuts off. I don't know what went on inside the vehicle, but the vehicle went off. And I go back and the lady was sitting there still talking to her husband. And she said, no, it went back dead. I said, put your foot back on the brake and I'll push the button. And she did it and I pushed the button and it cranked up. Well, she's sitting there, I still think it's the battery. And her husband was telling her, hey, if there's not a battery light on or nothing like that, more than likely it's not the charging system. But I noticed what was going on. The vehicle very clearly said, put foot on brake, push start button. Well, as soon as we did that, it cranked, right? The whole time they had just been hitting the start button. Now, I don't know what made the vehicle cut off or what happened to it. It could be that it was sitting there. She said the only thing it said when I was sitting here waiting in line, it flashed up something about idling and the vehicle went dead. Well, we got it cranked and I followed her across the road to the hospital so she could get to work. My point of this is they were making going out of their way trying to find everything but as simple, do what the dash told you, right? The dash tells you put your foot on the brake, push the start button. They're over here overcomplicating the situation. I had another issue like that several years ago with a friend of mine. Her mother had borrowed her car and stopped at a Sonic or something and the car wouldn't crank back. So they go buy batteries and all, they put like a $200 battery in this vehicle. They get it home and the car won't crank the next morning. I go check the car and guess what it was? It was just a loose battery cable. It was a Mazda 6, and it had, you know, your battery cable was tight on the terminal, but it had another wire that hooked on the back of it on the negative side. It was loose. That was the whole problem, but they threw $200 at it to crank it and get it home, right? Always check the simple things first. I mean, that's the point I'm making. What taught me that was my grandpa. We still haven't made those videos. I'm going to make them, I promise. I had an 68 4-ton truck one day. The truck been running perfect. I was, I don't know, 18, 19-year-old, pretty mechanically inclined. But he kept hearing me try to crank it, and it wouldn't crank. I'm like, he walked up there where I was. He said, "What's going on?" I said, "It won't crank. It just turns over and over and over and won't crank." He opens the hood, takes one look, and says, "Hey, your ground wire going to the motor's loose." Tighten it up, and it cranked it right up, right? He told me, he said, always look at the simple things first. When you have a problem, no matter what it is in life, look at the simple things first if you're trying to fix that problem, right? And that always stuck with me, even to this day. It helped me about a year and a half, 2 years ago with another lady that was at a Dollar General. Her car wouldn't crank. I opened the hood and pushed down on her relays, and one of her relays was loose, and the vehicle cranked right up. But most people, when they get in a situation like it, they get nervous. Of course, they're embarrassed because they're blocking, it's not like highway traffic, but you're holding up a drive-through line, right? This lady was super nice, and one thing that made me laugh, the lady that was on the phone kept talking to her husband the whole time. They're trying to go through all these checklists, right? And I'm just doing the simple things, you know, make sure this is tight, you know, your fuses are in there good, and kind of follow the directions on the dash, right? What it tells you when you turn a vehicle on. Well, the lady that owned the vehicle said, "Ma'am, you need to listen to the man in the overalls. He got what sounds like common sense. He's checking the simple things first. You're over here, you know, wanting to break out a computer and work on my car or something." But we got her cranked up. We got her to work. I hope the vehicle keeps going good for her. I don't know why it shut off. You know, some of these vehicles nowadays cut off when they're idling and they crank back up at a stop sign or something, right? I don't know. I told her I couldn't tell her what caused it, but, you know, simple things as following the directions on the dash would help crank it. She hadn't had the vehicle about 2 days. You know, and I know she was embarrassed because she wasn't elderly, but she was about 10, 15 years older than me. I'm old. I'm 46, so she was probably in her 50s, you know, early 60s. But we got her fixed up, and the point of this story is keep things simple. Like if you're working on a vehicle or something that's giving you problems, look at the simple things first. A lot of times it turns out, most of you know, some kind of grounding issue, right? That's usually the problem. My H2 Hummer, man, that thing will kill a battery overnight. We've chased it, and I finally said, well, we just put a master disconnect switch on it. That's what we did to it, because there's a lot of wires in them vehicles. Known problem with them too about killing batteries. But just keep it, the KISS thing, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? Not calling anybody stupid, but that's the saying. Look at your little things first. You know, if you're having issues with something you're working on, look at your little things first, and maybe that'll fix it. Sometimes it won't. I'm not saying it's going to fix it every time, but just, you know, don't panic. That's the main thing. I always tell y'all, there's never a time to panic. I had a friend one time told me, they said, "You don't panic about nothing, do you?" No, it does no good, because if you're panicking for 5 minutes, at the end of that 5 minutes, you're in the same situation. So just keep it simple, right? Guys, I hope y'all are enjoying this video. I know most of you's not watching it. We're almost at 9 minutes here. For some reason, I've been making longer videos, but there's the video. Keep it simple, right? Don't overcomplicate things, because sometimes at the end of the day, it's the smallest thing that you overlook that could fix it. Stay safe, get prepped up, keep your head on a swivel, be aware of your surroundings at all times, protect yourself and your family at all times. If you're still watching at 9 minutes and 6 seconds, hit that subscribe button if you haven't. We're still trying to grow the channel. Welcome to all the new subscribers. I know most of you come from the shorts, and then when you see what my videos are about, you're gone, right? But we're getting close. It took us 6, 7 months to get 200 subscribers to hit 500 last year. We're about the same now. We're at, what, 200, something like that, 210 from 1,000. So if you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. I hope this video helps you, and, you know, feel free to share it. Stay safe, get prepped up, keep it simple. Check the small things first.